I'm not super plugged in on the homebrew side anymore, but starting to do the YouTube stuff, I definitely do have, listeners, viewers that are brewing on the homebrew side. And something that I didn't know that has popped off has been pressure fermentation at home.
Oh yeah.
People fermenting either in cornies and the equipment has gone nuts on the homebrew side since I've quit homebrewing. It's really wild. Are you still homebrewing at home? Do you have any thoughts or takes on some of the pressure fermentation stuff people are doing?
Yeah, I'm a pressure fermentation skeptic, because historically, traditionally, however you want to frame it, beer was open fermented for the first 90% of history.
Yeah.
And so it's only been the last 100 years that we've started with the enclosed fermentations and the conicals, and pressure fermentation arose as kind of a side effect, if you will, of the trying to prevent oxidation. While pressure fermentation does decrease esters and therefore allows you to brew a beer warmer than you would be able to otherwise without overpressure, I still wonder, and I've had side by sides, and I'm not convinced that it's the same beer. I taste differences. So, I'm like I say, I'm not a fan of it.
Sure.
But there are so many tools you can use to brew a good batch and ferment a good batch. My preferred method is to switch up yeasts. If you're trying to brew at 80 degrees Fahrenheit, well then go to an ale strain that has been shown to perform well at those warmer temperatures.
Yeah.
Or go to a Kveik strain, and maybe get a firm blanket and wrap it around and get that fermentation up to 90 or 95, where the Kveik will work very well at that temperature.
What's your experience been with that yeast? Is it because when I was working at a small pub, it wasn't even a one barrel system. It was I was doing the whole Dogfish Head, handsome Italian routine. What was he brewing on?
The Savco.
Yeah, the Savco. Yeah. So I would turn that 3 times in one shift for a barrel. Wow. Okay, so believe me, man, there was we'll call it a frenetic pace for the first 2/3 of the day. That maybe the first 3 quarters, and the last quarter it was a little more laid back, but there was always something going. Now that place had no temperature control, plastic fermenters. It was pretty wild. So I ended up playing quite a bit with Kveik yeast, trying to see if this is something that can be usable in this situation. What's kind of been your take, because Kveik was something that was really, really hot on the pro side for a period of time. And I feel like maybe that has dropped off some. Where's that wave at from your experience, maybe on the homebrew side? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's still popular, but I mean, it really doesn't perform well below 95. 90 to 95 is kind of like that last regime. It's much happier at 100, 105. So I brew a lager style, kind of a Dunkelbock. It's one of my favorite homebrew recipes. And I've done it with Kveik, but I need to ferment at about 95.
Yeah.
And that beer turned out really well. I mean, the ester character that Kveik has, it being a little bit fruitier than a typical ale yeast, worked well with that dark beer style.
Yeah.
But I also brew that with 3470 and other. Just I pick a yeast depending on what my ambient temperatures are in the garage.
Yeah. Well, that's a smart way to do it, and that's one of those things. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to have experience with, because it's a tool belt thing, right?
Yeah.
Like if depending on what your fermentation parameters are, there's options.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I do think it opens up the game to people that are in, especially in warmer climates.
Yeah.
It's
And yeah, there's kind of a no man's land between, say, 75 Fahrenheit and 95 Fahrenheit, where there's really not a good choice in that range.
sure.
But you go to tropical climates, where ambient can be 90 and 95 degrees, then
Yeah.
Kveik is really a godsend there.